All right. Well, we are live again once more for Talk Power BI Friday. Oh, I guess just got a notification that I'm live. Hello and welcome everybody. We have our friends on the phone. Let's take a look. We have Victor, um, D. Conley, Kenneth, of course. Bill is here, and so is Liz. Hello and welcome to everybody from the Learn Power BI family who's here. And let's check in on YouTube. I already saw a few hellos. I know I was a few minutes late, but good to have you guys here. Okay, well, Papa Chaudhry, thank you. Hello. Robert Klein says hello from Calgary. Praveen says hi. Awesome. And Nan Kamdi says hi, Avi. So if you're watching us live, do say hi and let me know where you're dialing in from, where you're watching us from. I love hearing that. And if for everybody else, I'll just do a quick intro of Talk Power BI. Talk Power BI is just a show I've done every Friday. The main premise of Talk Power BI is this idea that learning comes from doing. But the challenge with that is once you start doing, you keep getting stuck. And the goal with this is to help you over those roadblocks. That's the main premise, but we do kind of go beyond that, and sometimes we have a specific topic we discuss and we'll go deeper on, and we just like to have this opportunity to have the community participate, Learn Power BI members and YouTube followers as well. So Eric says hi, Danny says hello, big hello to Danny, Keisha says hi, Jen Abel says hi, Sean says hello from Austin, Texas, Ahmed is saying hi from Dubai, Danny is from Greensboro, Georgia. Yeah. Did you Nancy? All right. So Nancy. Oh yeah. So Nancy, I think I was trying to talk to you on the previous Talk Power BI, but we weren't able to connect. Hopefully, we'll get a chance today. Oscar is here from Panama. Great. Keisha from Denver, Colorado. Bob says from hello from Kansas City. Christian from Bloomington, Minnesota. My sister lives there. Well, in Minnesota, not in Bloomington. I don't know. I have no idea if they're close. And Ridha says hi from Johannesburg, South Africa. So hello and welcome everybody. So I'm gonna kick it off, but again, we'll always stay back for your questions. So this one, I'm hoping to make it somewhat interactive. So folks on the phone, I would love to. If you know what, Leah, let's give it a shot. Let's see how this is gonna go. So the topic for today was something that was brought up by one of our members, one of our students in the Learn Power BI family. Let me cue that up, right? So September 13th, and they were talking to us on a call, and they were talking about their organization, and of course, so this was somebody who is really passionate about Power BI themselves, right? So they're really passionate about Power BI themselves, and they've kind of like drank the Kool-Aid, right? I mean, they're convinced it's the bee's knees, the next best thing since sliced bread, and it's gonna save humanity, solve world hunger, all of that stuff, which I believe in too, right? So Power BI is great, but when you're working with people around you, different challenges appear. And by the way, the Excel wall, I'm not throwing Excel under the bus. Excel is pretty darn amazing as well. In fact, the modern Excel is it has the capability of Power BI built in, right? So I'm not digging that. If you're using that, that's great. Frankly, this stands for something, right? This stands for something, and we can always, I don't know, maybe substitute Excel with the old wall or old guard or something like that, right? But you run into this challenge where there's resistance, right? Where you are all starry-eyed about Power BI, but you talk to others and they don't get it. And it's so hard to talk to them, so hard to convince them of anything, to make a change and all of that. So let me just ask all of you if you have encountered that, right? I mean, are we talking about something that is? I frankly don't know how prevalent it is. I mean, if I would look back to my clients, that is not. I just realized that is not a good test. You know why that's not a good test? So, yeah. So I can't trust what I have seen. Why? Oops. You know what? Let's move this guy out of the way. Insert page break. Go away. So we're going to focus on this. So something happened here. No. I'll make Word work for me. All right, great. So I'm not a good judge of this at all. Why? Because of this idea of self-selection. The people I talk to, I mean, by definition, they have gone through some of this stuff. People who are on the other side of the Excel wall, they don't hang out in my channel. They don't talk to me. They don't contact me. They don't join my course. They don't reach out to us for consulting or training, right? So it's self-selection. So I'm going to be terrible at this. As far as I'm concerned, Power BI revolution is on full swing and everybody is on board. So I want to hear from others if that is the case. So Theodore is saying Excel should be considered just another data source. Yeah, but try telling that to an Excel guide. You definitely can't open with that. I mean, I hear you. I totally understand what you're saying. What Excel is good at that Power BI isn't. Rapid development user interface for data entry. Possibly. Yeah, cool. So let's see. Let's see if we can hear some. So folks on the phone, do you have any thoughts, opinions?
Avi,
Yeah, Kenneth. All right. Go ahead. What's your take on it? Have you seen this? Right. I mean, that. Let's start there.
I've seen it in a variety of forms.
All right. Tell us more.
Sometimes there are pain points that don't have to do with the product. Like,
Hmm.
do people have trouble figuring out what's the most recent version of the data? Uh,
Well, yeah, got it. So they're struggling with
Or
it. Yeah. Oh, shit.
or or is the organization siloed with a bunch of spreadsheets in one, and they want to share across the the
Yeah.
silo?
Yeah, but you're
Uh,
talking about pain points, and I get that. But talk to me about the resistance, where you try to talk to them about Power BI, and maybe they're not listening. They don't. They resist even, or I don't know, turn it down or something like that. What does that look like?
well, my rule has always been you can't sell both the solution and the product. So I try to talk to them about the solution, which involves using something like Power BI,
Got it.
rather than say, oh, if you just
Yeah,
use this, problem would be better.
got it. But have you encountered this resistance, this Excel wall, as one of the students put it?
Yes,
What
I've
what does that look like? What kind of things do these people say? Right? I mean, yeah, what does that look like? How do you know that this is what it is? Don't want to put you on the spot.
Is that
no,
okay? Or you still going, Ken?
yeah. Let someone else go ahead.
All right, yeah, somebody else
Avi,
chime.
can you hear me?
Yes, I
So this
can.
is Dan. So I've seen it not just, frankly, not just with Power BI, but the Excel piece, especially on the financial side. So
Mm-hmm.
the accounting and the finance team.
Yeah,
And a big part of it is the fact that they've spent years,
yeah,
most of them they were in college, learning Excel skills.
yeah,
So they're usually very proficient with it. They understand it. The company owns it. Now,
yeah.
obviously, I think to Ken's point, there's a lot of challenges with it, but
Mm-hmm.
somebody's so familiar with something, it's very difficult to give it up.
Yeah,
And not that the learning curve isn't necessarily huge from a Power BI perspective, but
yeah,
it's still there. You want to get into some of the advanced skills and the macros and the VBA and all the stuff that they've written over years that
yeah,
they're using every day. It's the what's the value in switching over, and
yeah,
maybe what Ken was going with. What are the pain points and the other things they're seeing? But
yeah,
a lot of times it's difficult since they're so good with it.
yeah. Oh boy. Yeah, so good with it. I like that phrase. Let's see what people are saying online. Mm, Christian is saying Excel gives comfort those who like to see the underlying data. Wow, that's a good point. I'm gonna comfort to those who like seeing underlying data. Now, of course, that can be solved, but again, I mean, the first thing is you gotta be aware of their objections, right? What's going on in their head, right? Objections, right? So what is going on in their head? So boy, we're on a good start here, folks. This is really good. This is gonna be awesome. Oh gosh, I'm almost drooling now. Let's see what else. Okay, Vishwanath has a question. So Vishwanath, we are gonna get a question, promise. I think this is kind of an interesting topic to kick things off with, or we actually custom application. Elwood, I think it is a trust thing. Do I trust the data? Do I trust a new tool? Will it be used to micromanage me? So again, I mean, if you're not aware of the dialogue inside their head, you can't engage with them. And that's the thing, that sometimes this dialogue is going to be inside their head. And I'm going to say another thing, which is there's one thing that they would say, and then there's another thing that they're thinking. Boy, so I actually didn't really realize that the discussion is going to go this way, but we'll explore that in a second. Theracia is saying, I think Excel is a good tool, but future is BI, considering huge amount of data. And in fact, we're training a finance person who is good at Excel. It's great. I mean, so it seems things are working for you, but right now I want to explore that friction point where, you go talk to somebody and you meet this resistance. And again, they may not say what they're thinking. Excel will give user interface for them. That is a valid one. I think. Which I'll say, Excel. Like I know, I probably have felt the same way where I feel kind of handicapped at times. I've definitely seen Excel users like, oh, in Excel I could just go and edit it. All right, cool. So again, we got Jim. Good to have you on. You've jumped right into the thick of the discussion, and we're talking about this resistance. Get past Excel wall. Partially updates data can show data from two iterations, same data. Oh boy, yeah. So trust is Theodore is echoing the issue of trust. All right, cool. Any other thoughts? Did that dredge up any other thoughts? Charles, go ahead. And by the way, hey, welcome to Learn Power BI, my mate, friend. Yeah, good. Nice of you to hop on your first call. That's great. Good to have you. Oh wait, I'm not sure if you have your audio. I saw you raise your hand. Try to see. So there should be a button to select your microphone. If you see kind of the microphone going up and down, yeah, the microphone zoom should look like this, right? If the green button is moving up and down.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Oh, thank God. Yeah. Sometimes these things seem tricky. Yeah.
I think we need to focus on what problem you're solving for them. So rather than just try to convert them from Excel, you should identify, obviously there's going to be something they can't do in Excel that they want to do better, or you can show them how it can be done. So solve a problem for them, not just try to create, in a sense, a new one by getting them to convert to a different tool.
I couldn't agree more. This is one of the worst things you could do, where you go in and you say, or go in with this attitude, or I don't know if you expressly say it or not, where like, oh yeah, Excel is dead, or something silly like that. Cool.
I mean, you showed that in your 5 things that, simple things that you can't do in Excel with all formulas all over the place.
Yeah.
I mean, so if you could show them something, or get them to tell you what challenges they're having with Excel, and then solve it for them in PowerBI.
Good point. All right, Kenneth, you were gonna say something?
I was the trust thing.
Yeah.
With Excel, to a certain extent, you can hide your stuff and only present to the world what you decide to present to the world. And it's just like reports where you go munge all your data and whatever, and then you deliver a report. So people can feel like everyone can see all of their data, and that can be really bad from their point of view. So they're giving up like their privacy shield, or or something like that. And the other thing, it's really important that Power BI is not a data entry tool, but you can use Excel as a data entry tool.
Yeah, that's right. Wish I could that. So great. Let me see if I can capture that. So can choose what they show. And of course, the ultimate form of this, which is exercised everywhere, is to take a screenshot, stick it in PowerPoint. Right? I mean, so much of work that is done in Excel and Power BI, even Power BI. I mean, even though Power BI is kind of presentation ready, but it still ends up in PowerPoint. But even in Excel, can choose what they show. With Power BI, they may feel that they're giving up that control. Terrific. So I think we have. Let's see if we have.
You may want to put one more thing on there.
Yeah, Dan, go ahead.
And I would say it's cost. I realize you can get a free version of Power BI, but to really leverage the full functionality, share things securely, all that, there is a cost.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it's hard to articulate it, although, it's $5 or $10, depending on your thing for the pro license. But really understanding how that works and being able to talk someone through that on the Microsoft pricing can sometimes be a little bit of a challenge too.
Yeah, cost is a whole another ballgame. I feel I'm gonna park that for later. So let's kind of pause here to check it, right? So what is the inner dialogue going on inside them? And again, they may not even realize it, right? So that's how our psychology works. That they might not even realize it. Um, hey folks, yeah, go and mute if you're not talking. So, yeah. So it's quite possible that what they say is something different, right? So they, let me see, pin video. Okay. So what they say might be, I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think of examples. Maybe you guys can help me out on YouTube as well. That what they say may be different than this. They might, I don't know. It would seem kind of logical. They would say that, like I'll tell you the extreme example, which really frustrated me, and I've learned to watch out for that. Where we took their Excel reports and Power BI'd it, right? And it was better. I mean, if you ask me, it was far better. I mean, right? I mean, so we the update and all that stuff, all the magic that Power BI brings, right? So for one, you connect to all the data sources. You can click one, click refresh, and then measures is defined once used everywhere, and then you have I mean, you can build reports off of that. All of that coolness was there, but then they say, well, what's the big deal? We can do this in Excel, and I do hear that at other times too. It's like I regardless of what I show them, they say I can do that in Excel, which in a way is true, right? I mean, Excel is a very flexible tool; it can do anything you want, but of course, the cost of doing that in Excel is often quite a bit, and it gets worse and worse. That's unlike Power BI. But so it becomes a really hard discussion. But I think you got to go deeper than that. You got to kind of avoid that and think about these things. So regardless of what they say, which might be very logical, may even be hard to argue with, but they're fearing. So for this, I'm going to use one of my friend's quotes, Reed Havens, and he says, "People do not fear change, they fear loss." And man, I think that's so brilliant. So you got to figure out what are they afraid of losing, right? So again, they're afraid of losing control, right? I mean, maybe they're the only person. I've heard of CFOs who did the whole thing themselves, which is silly. They shouldn't be doing any of that, but they felt in control. Or whatever, right? I mean, obviously, really tangible. They might be just afraid that they're going to lose their job, right? That, hey, this thing is going to be automated. What am I going to do, right? Right now, I'm spending 80% of my time refreshing these reports. So you got to understand what's going on. So I think there's some fear, some loss, kind of that, and they have spent a lot of time, and they're at that spot. This is a valid one where it's like, hey, I can see the data. I think data entry is kind of a valid one. So some of these, I'm going to group these. I wish I had post-its. But so we would do this in Six Sigma. We would do kind of brainstorming and club these together. So I think this one is kind of the emotional thing. and I think trust is also a very emotional thing. So we'll club those two together, and I'm sure there are more, right? So we're not obviously not going to be. This is not going to be exhaustive today, guys, right? But there's some emotional factors there, which is yeah, this fear of change slash loss, the fact that they have spent so much time on this, and I think it's echoed here, but loss of control, right? That sort of stuff. So these are emotional things, and then there are some tangible things, which are I want to see the underlying data. I want to be able to enter data easily, right? So those I think, frankly, are a little easier to solve. Cool. So once we have that, let's move on to the solution. And I think Charles already touched on that a little bit. In fact, Kenneth kind of started with that as well. So if we know this thing, I think one thing is for sure. Solution approach is you definitely should never come in with the mindset, and definitely not say it out loud. Well, don't have the mindset. If you don't have that mindset, then you're not going to say it out loud, right? So let's solve it there. Of moving anybody off of Excel. So I remember talking to a team, a Power BI expert, in fact, and they said, "Oh, Avi, yeah, we're an organization of." It was a large organization, like 30,000 people, and we moved everybody off of Excel. And I was totally incredulous. I'm like, "What? Tell me more." It's like, "Yeah, we moved everybody off of Excel and we're just using Power BI." And I'm like, "Well, are they not using the export button?" And he's like, "No, we don't have Excel." And I pushed him more, and he said, "Actually, we revoked their ability to install Excel in Office 365 or whatever." And I'm like, "Oh my god, really?" And so I pushed him more. I'm like, "Well, but if somebody needs to do some work with them, some data, just take that and I don't know, just change that to a different graph or something, or do they, yeah, are they all the time using Power BI?" And finally, it took some time for him to concede it, but he said, "Yeah, well, we do have Google Sheets." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's a nightmare." So Google Sheets is great. I use Google Sheets all the time. It's awesome, but it's not Excel. And if for somebody who's used to Excel, Google Sheets is no other way to say it. It's shitty Excel. I mean, you feel like, "Oh, what is this? Just give me back my Excel," right? So you took away Excel from these people. You gave them shitty Excel, which they're now forced to use. And yeah, so that you didn't really improve anything, right? So I think this moving off of Excel is a terrible idea. In fact, Excel and Power BI, of course, we have covered that a few times on this channel. Excel and Power BI are better together, right? And they peacefully, happily coexist. So that should be the approach. Cost is kind of a specific factor as well, so I would like to address it separately. But is there anything else about kind of the mindset thing about tackling these things? There's a sense of fear, sense of loss, sense of control. Does somebody want to add to that? Kenneth, yeah, go ahead.
In a lot of cases, you might be able to find a small group of people who are willing to add Power BI because they have some issue or problem, or just because they're interested in it.
Yeah.
And since Excel and Power BI do get along, you could add it for that group. And then if it's successful there, I mean, I think we've heard your story about how you started, because then if you can find an interested group, you don't have to convert them, right? And usually in most organizations of any size, there will be a group like that.
Yeah, I love that, folks. Of course, yep, I talk about that non-stop. I think Power BI is the Agile BI. If you've heard a top-down story without a bottom-up story as well. So what I'm talking about is kind of the old school BI approach. And I had seen it many times, and I had seen it fail many times in my career, where the CEO, CMO, whatever, some big guy decided, that, somebody walked into their office, showed them a nice PowerPoint presentation or something, a nice demo, and they said, "Oh, we shall be using this tool," and then yeah, I'm not a fan of that. Frankly, I have not seen one instance of that work if there wasn't like a ground up thing. So I like going ground up. I like finding that small team, and you've heard me talk about it before. I call it about the shining beacon of light, the first project. So start small. I kind of work with one group, solve a big problem, right? And of course, I like to solve something which is a big problem, but it's easy in Power BI. So kind of the low hanging fruit makes it. It can be done in 2 to 3 days sometimes, and that turns heads, right? That is what I call the shining beacon. So I definitely like that approach. So yeah, so you don't have to go in kind of with all guns blazing. Let me check in on YouTube as well, see if there are any other comments. Danny is saying, don't forget about VB macros. Yes, I love my macros as well. People can get very attached to that.
One of the other things, Avi, from a change perspective, I did a lot of work with some venture capital firms on M&A, and one of the things is change is very personal.
Mm-hmm.
So think about it this way: when you come in, and I did a lot of work with the technology teams trying to help them to switch people from one platform to another. And a big thing is when you're telling people that there's a better way to do it, you're also saying the way you did it wasn't the best way. So helping them to understand, and kind of making that a smooth transition is a big thing, because again, there's a better way to do it. A lot of times people hear, you're telling me that I'm not doing it the best way.
Well, so give me a different language. What the heck am I supposed to say?
What's that?
Give me a different language. What should I say to them?
Well, so I think kind of what Charles was talking about down there before. It's it's understanding the problems that you're trying to solve versus trying to change what they're doing. Saying you have issues. Here's some ways we may be able to fix those things. I think what he said, that's a key driver around that versus here's a new tool that's better than what you're doing. Here's a new process that's better than what you're doing. It's if you have a problem, let's see how we can find a way to resolve.
Got it. I like that. And sometimes the smallest of these things make the biggest difference, just the way that you phrase it. So if you say there's a better way of doing it, what they're hearing is my way of doing is wrong. I like that. So this is great. And of course, it goes back to what Charles said. Instead, focus on problem solution. Hey, tell us, you just listen to them, right? I mean, go listen to the problems. Like, yep, And the funny thing is, you gotta sometimes scratch under the surface. So you've heard Charles Elwood on this channel before, and he had this really humorous story where he walks into a company and asks them, like, cool, so do you need any help? And it's like, no, we're good. We're all good in reporting. Everything's going great. And he asked them a few more questions, and then he finally asked them, and he didn't know. I mean, he's just talking to them. But then he asked, well, how long does it take for you to make a change in the report? And the answer was, oh, it takes forever. and of course, he's like, what? You just said things are okay, right? So it took them forever because their solution was all custom code. I don't know what language, whatever, C#, Java, whatever, it doesn't matter, right? Some language, but it all custom code. So if they needed to change a bar graph line chart or something, somebody had to go in, kind of check out their code. It was development process, right? Which is crazy, right? But yeah, I mean, listen to them, and if you just focus on the problems, like, okay, cool. And I also like the idea that what I propose sometimes is I don't call that. Maybe you have a loud mic in one place. So I don't say that as a replacement. I sometimes go in as an alternative. So I can say, hey, you can have your stuff. Sometimes I even may help them with their Excel, VBA macros, and all that stuff. Sometimes I would do that. Right? Of course, there are two ways to do it. One is you take their Excel stuff and you build Power BI inside of it, right? Using Power Pivot, Power Query. And so I give them that, and it's still the same pivot tables. They don't know, right? And you're like, oh, cool. This is what I did. And now it's faster, one-click refresh, right? So give them the same thing, but then I say, oh, by the way, Oh, by the way, here's this Power BI visual stuff, and so again, just give us an alternative. So this is pretty cool. Let me check in on YouTube. Oscar is hello from Redmond. You've had Oscar. Good to have you on. I think you were on the call as well, right? Oh wait, no. Okay, cool. All right. What is, I don't understand the reference to that. This tutor is saying, "Give me back my Microsoft Multiplan." Is that a tool? Is that a real tool that was out there? I didn't get to use that one. Oscar says hello. Elwood says fear of losing money for the company by deciding to use a new tool. Yeah, gosh, losing money. That's that. There's something there. So there's something there, and there's something about the decision there. I wanna um yeah, I wanna think about that. Fear of losing money. I feel that's not that much of a factor. So Charles, I think we're getting a little bit of. Oh, we gonna add something? Yeah. Sorry, we get some feedback.
Yeah, I'm having problems with the microphone. Can you
Yeah.
hear me
Okay.
now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Were you gonna add something to the discussion? Okay, cool. Feel free to chime in whenever you need to. Kimberly's saying it is definitely easier to filter in Excel than Power BI for the quick down and dirty report. Yeah, Excel has its strengths. Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And where was this thing? Yeah, so I'm gonna write that in as well. And Kimberly, I want to be able to do the quick and dirty report. Easily filter. I use Excel all the time, but of course I use it differently. I use it connected to Power BI, which is the way I like it. But again, these people may not know that, may not understand it. Yes, yeah, that's a pretty safe assumption. It's kind of hard to imagine, like, what are you talking about? All right, so good one. Yeah, so Keisha like that. Yeah, just go with problem solution. I mean, of course, I'm trying to do that and kind of in my business too. I'm like, am I selling? No, I'm just solving problems. Like, what are the problems that I can solve? Okay.
One of the other things, Avi, you may want to think a little bit about, kind of layering on to what Ken said.
Yeah.
The solving a problem and getting that quick win is a great thing, but also thinking about, who the key influencers are. And often they're not the senior leaders. Senior leaders like new shiny things. They are able to tell the board, here's what we're doing. But when you get 2 or 3 layers down in the organization, the people who actually have to implement or use the tools, they can really be the challenge. And finding some of those people that other people respect and getting them on board through solving one of their problems can be a huge step forward versus, solving something for, some executive VP who, and then his team's looking and going, well, we could have done that for you too.
That is brilliant. Oh my gosh, that is worth its weight in gold. And now I'm flashing back to all the engagement that I've had, and of course, so you got to go in and kind of judge the company dynamic. But so I'll play out one scenario where you go in and you do like a big presentation, and everybody's there, the senior leader is there, and maybe this stakeholder is there as well, right? And everybody loves it, loves the presentation. Everybody's going out. This person may not say anything in that meeting, right? They're everybody's falling over themselves, kind of. And then part of like, oh my gosh, look at that, drill down or something like that. So they may not say anything, and then you go start working with this person, and everything falls apart, right? So obviously that's like the worst case scenario, but so sometimes it helps to, well, fine. I mean, if you need to present something to senior leaders, great. And often we don't even start with that. We do say that, hey, tell us who your main person is, like who's your data guy or data girl, data person, right? And engage with that. And if you solve something for them and they now, kind of nod their head and they go, man, this is something. And then of course, if they're more excited than that, that's great, right? If they say, whoa, now I can see the potential. And that's often what happens. So that's a good piece of advice, guys. Don't forget that. That's awesome. Okay, I'm going to quickly scan through the comments really quick. Listening, yes, listening, such a huge skill. I saw a poster in Microsoft the other day when I was visiting one of my old friends. It had the Chinese symbol for listen, and apparently the symbol, I don't know Chinese myself, but it said that apparently the symbol, what it literally means is that I don't know, I give you my my ears, my nose, right? Basically, the idea was you listen with your whole body. You probably heard that before from people who talk about listening and listening skills. Like you are focused on that. And one thing that I know I'm guilty of is that instead of listening, I'm just thinking of the next thing that I am going to say. Don't do that. All right. So yeah, don't do that. All right. So let's see.
I think one approach, or maybe it's a mindset, is
Yeah.
to make it their idea.
Oh, I love that. The Trojan horse approach. Oh, that's such a good one. We're going to park that for now. I'm not ready to talk about that yet. Make it seem like their idea. I don't know if we should call it Trojan horse, but yeah, plant it inside their head. Cool. We'll come back to that. Theodore recently saw an article, COBOL at 60. I learned COBOL in college. Never got to use it. Why it will outlive us all. That's hilarious. Yeah. One of my friend works in mainframe. It's a decision. You can't hold on to the past. I think we're seeing a shift, and yeah, we can talk more about that. Keisha. Oh, so Keisha has a good point. She's saying, hey, sometimes because we're the pioneers, I mean, we're on the cutting edge and we're trying it for the first time, we may not understand the capabilities of Power BI. And so I think there are two parts to it, Keisha, which is really good. Thanks for bringing that up. Which is, for one, even we may not know. That's a good point. And of course, sometimes you know how like my son, so obviously I was born in India, I grew up there. English not my native language, so sometimes my son asks me, Dad, what does this word mean? And I say, I know it, but I can't explain it to you, right? So, and I don't know, I mean, think about it, maybe that happens to you in some other context as well. So it might be that being the Power BI pioneer, you may understand it, but how do you articulate it? And of course, I think there's another flavor to it, which is some you may not know. That's a good point. I'm gonna hold that one too. If Mary likes a data person, cool. Elwood says fear of truth coming from BI that challenges current opinion. Yeah, I mean we've discussed that before, but I like that wording there. I'm gonna club it with what I think Kenneth, or where do the problems go? Fear. Giving up control. Yeah, can choose what they show. You know, so the funny thing is, and I'm glad I've left Microsoft so I can talk about this stuff. in one Microsoft meeting, and of course this was like a smaller group within Microsoft. I wasn't hanging out with Satya or anybody, but in a group, we got together and people couldn't agree if our sales were up or down. And it sounds hilarious, but is it? I mean, how many times have you been in meetings where people couldn't agree on the data, right? So, you know, that's just an extreme example of that.
Avi?
Hold on, just one last comment here. HMIS Help Desk. Hello, my friend. Good to have you join. I'm at a nonprofit. It's been hard to justify the time needed to learn Power BI. Yes, when we are scraping by with Excel. Luckily, boss is supportive, but it's hard to focus when you have many other duties. It can be challenging. I get it. But I think not to belittle what you're saying. It's completely valid. I felt the same. A lot of my students feel the same. I sometimes use the analogy that learning something new is like changing tires in a moving car. So I get that. I feel it. But maybe your answer is in your statement itself, right? So people say, oh, I mean, yeah. So you know, so sometimes people say, Avi, I mean, I'm so busy. I'm so busy. How can I do this? And I'm like, shouldn't you learn Power BI because you're so busy, right? I mean, think about how you're busy, and when are you not going to be busy, right? When is that going to happen? In a week, in a month? No, my mate, come on. You know, wake up to reality is never going to happen unless you make a material change, right? Nothing's going to change if nothing's going to change. So if you're scraping by with Excel, that should be reason enough. So that's a whole can of worms. So we'll kind of park that. Learning Power BI. That does go back to a little bit to what I want to call that HMIS. It goes back to what we were seeing here. Where was it? Yeah. Dan talked about that, where they have spent years. So I often go in and ask people like how many years of Excel experience they have, and they say 15 years. And then I ask how many years of cumulative Excel experience do you have on your team? And of course they shrug their shoulders like, I don't know, it might be 100 plus, right? I mean that's kind of always the case. So yeah, that's all is there, and yeah, so there is that learning thing. We'll talk about that. Cool, Kenneth. What did you have in mind?
Two quick ones.
Mm-hmm.
Some places that are really blame driven organizations, people are
Yeah,
afraid of any change. They don't care if it's a good change or a bad change.
yeah,
Change is bad from their point of view. Uh,
yeah,
and the other thing is that I don't have time to learn it is another form of cost, right? You can't pay the cost
yeah,
to vastly improve what you could do. The organization can't pay the cost. And
yeah.
that means the organization doesn't really think the people working for it are doing anything to amount to anything. Um,
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. So of course, I mean, so Dan earlier was talking about like the licensing cost, but then there is of course other costs like learning costs and all that sort of stuff. Uh, my only take on that is that what I've found is that often organizations, when they're looking at cost, they're just looking at cost. They're not looking at the other side. And sometimes it's hard to talk about the benefits, if you will, of like, oh look, I mean, I'm gonna spend these many hours learning, but then I'm gonna create this awesome thing. Now, of course, if you haven't created it yet, it's hard to talk about it, right? It's hard for them to put a value on it. What I like to do is that if whenever somebody talks about cost, I just say, what is the cost of not doing anything, right? What is the cost of that? And of course, depending on the scenario, I may play out the scenario that, hey, what if your competitor, who's your biggest competitor? Name them. And say, what if they adopted Power BI and they, I don't know, leverage data to help with their customer service, with their order fulfillment, da da da. Right? I mean, if you play it out, what is going to be the cost of that? Yeah, that one is an interesting discussion. But yeah, again, I try to balance it just by pointing out the other side. And you can try to talk about benefits that, oh, look, you're going to have all the data in one place, how valuable it's going to be. And Kenneth, you've mentioned that in one of our earlier Talk Power BI, where you talked about a dashboard or a report where everybody through the chain of management has the same view. How powerful is that going to be? Like, what's that benefit going to be? And that's okay. You can talk about kind of benefits, but sometimes that doesn't go well. Then I try to do this. Like, okay, well, if you don't do anything, what's going to happen then? All right, cool. So let's see. Let's kind of try to wrap up, and I'm trying to figure it out. Theodore is saying I'm on a project on a Fortune 500 company that was on Excel and has moved to Power BI. It has taken 3 years, but we still don't have it completely working. Okay, it's yeah. I mean, I believe in Agile BI. I mean, it's as long as it's kind of improving. Okay, wow. Interesting. Oh, Elwood. Elwood, or Mysterious Elwood CN, was Charles Elwood. He's part of the program, and you've heard him many times. Now, of course, we have two Charles, at least, I guess, in the program. So this was Charles Sterling. Boy, what's the note that we finish this on? Maybe some good stories, and maybe what Theodore is talking about. So he's talking about that, hey, that they were on Excel, moved to Power BI. I would assume they're using Excel plus Power BI. But yeah, let's just talk about that land of what does transformation look like, and have you had any experience where initially maybe they were concerned and whatever, but then they saw it, and they go, whoa. So I'll share a quick story. The first one that came to mind was so of course now I focus on kind of online teaching, but I have done my fair share of in-person training, kind of corporate training. So we would be there for 2 days, and the way we used to teach was we would start out with a query editor, and then talk about kind of relationships and DAX, and then do visuals on day 2. Lately, I have kind of switched it. We start with the visuals, where everybody attends, and then we kick half of them out. Actually, we don't kick them out; they leave. They leave because then we say, oh, okay, cool. Now you know how to do the visuals. Now I'm gonna show you how it was built. So on day 2, we focus on query editor and relationships and DAX, and I tell them that, hey, you can leave anytime you want, and people do, and that's okay, right? Because if there are 100 people creating Power BI visuals,
check out these results.
Oops, I don't know what that was. Then there are going to be probably 10 people or 5 or even 1 who's creating the model. That's how powerful this is, right? So anyway, so day 2 in the old style, I was teaching them query editor relationships and DAX, and somebody came up to me on day 2. Right, so day 1 I had taught them DAX and filter context, define ones, use everywhere, magic of Power BI, all of that sort of stuff, magic of measures. I can't stop talking about measures. And day 2 they came to me and they said, Avi, thanks, and I get it. I didn't get it yesterday, but I went back, I tried out some of the data, and I get it. So thank you. So that's kind of a minor movement. But yeah, what do we have any stories of kind of transformation where you face this opposition, this resistance, but then what happened on the other side? Somebody they were able to convince. But Excel version is never quite working right either. All right. No stories there? I don't know, maybe your own story. Maybe you yourself started as a skeptic. I certainly did. Kenneth, go ahead.
I have a negative transformation story.
Okay, we'll take that.
I did a project,
Yeah.
set up a development team in a department. The people on the team were super energized.
Yeah.
The project went really well.
Yeah.
The department was really excited about it. I was working for IT, and about that point, they fired me.
That's definitely a negative story. Huh. Well, but things seem to be going well from your account. Sometimes it's as simple as you rubbed like that one person the wrong way, and right. Was it that? Was it something else? Do you have any insight into what really happened?
It was a setup where IT did all the projects for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a really convincing proof that the people in the department could really do their own projects and make it, and that really worked much better than the IT version.
Yeah.
And IT just wasn't having it.
I mean, in a way, and of course, I'm sure that was not the intent, but maybe, do you think that they felt that you kind of were making them look bad? I know I've been in that situation where I wasn't trying to, but people take it that way. It's like, oh gosh, he's making us look bad.
It was more like they felt responsible to keep every project under strict control, and having a more agile project threatened their idea of control, and they were like, we don't care how good the project is, we don't have the kind of control we need, so it's too bad, we're turning it off.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I get it. I see it in different ways. I'm a huge believer in Agile. In fact, I've been trying to apply it in my life in pretty much everything that I do. Certainly on my business-wise, when I'm trying things out with the course, I have a beta tag on almost everything that I do. In fact, last time we were in Banff, Canada, I tried this Agile vacation approach, which worked great, by the way. And I'll probably write about that sometime. But there seems to be this conflict between control versus agility. And now, of course, perception is truth, right? So that's the challenge. Perception is truth. If they perceive it that way, then that is the truth for them. That is their reality. If they feel that, oh, this way we're in control, this way maybe getting better results, as Kenneth said, but we're not in control. Now, of course, I haven't seen that in practice, but again, I mean, you gotta acknowledge kind of what they're feeling right there. So usually what I've seen is that people talk about, kind of the self-serve BI and so forth stuff, and they're like, we don't want that, right? So IT says, that is anarchy and everybody doing their own reports. That's BS. We're not going to stand for that, right? Now, of course, what they have is just an illusion of control. Just have an illusion of control, because you can do things whatever you want, right? I mean, you can have like, oh, this is our system, but until you have the export to Excel, or hey, you can't fool me, you can't call it export to CSV or something. We know where CSV files end up. As long as you have something like that, any backdoor, people are going to use it. What's going to happen is they're just not going to tell you. And now that I'm thinking about it, man, this is not that different than parenting. So with my kids, I can come down hard on them, like, oh no, you shouldn't watch TV or whatever. And guess what? They're still going to do it. They're just not going to tell me, right? I mean, maybe they'll watch it at a friend's place, or of course now everybody has cell phones, so they'll watch it on the cell phone, not on the home TV, that sort of stuff, right? So they're just not going to tell you. So this is this illusion of control. So and of course I think that's much worse, where they think that, oh, we have everything centralized, but then what's really happening is everybody's doing export to Excel, spending countless hours trying to do stuff, and since they don't have a communication going on in IT, they can't go to IT and say, hey, IT, look, we're spending 20 hours each month doing this. Can you build that into the formal report or something, right? So, and of course, what a healthy system looks like is IT. It's not IT versus business. They're part of the same team, same company, and there's this healthy relationship where they're talking to each other. Cool. Let's kind of end on that. And what's the time now? Oh, perfect. So right in the hour. So folks, let's switch over to Power BI Q&A. So if you have, so for the Q&A portion, what we do is we try to go round robin. And if somebody has a Power BI question, and it doesn't have to be like a technical question. It could be, hey, I want some career advice, whatever. I'm working with this client, da da da. Could be anything. But if you have a specific question, on the phone, usually it's best to just speak up. I'm watching the YouTube chat, so I'm not able to watch the chat in the Zoom thing we're using.
So Avi, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
And if somebody can answer this, I'm willing to take it offline too. But if anybody's used the Informix connector and has some experience with DRDA and how to configure that, I'd love to hear about that.
Okay, yeah, I'm certainly...
It's probably a little outside of this call, but...
Well, it's certainly out of my depth, yeah. But yeah, if somebody on the phone knows it, Informix connector, DRDA, then just, chat. So that was Dan, right?
If anybody's actually implemented the Informix connector, I'd love to hear a little bit about it. Still having a lot of problems, seen a lot of this stuff on like Microsoft site, but still not able to quite solve it.
Okay, cool. So folks, in the chat window, you can also, connect with Dan in here if you use that. So folks on the YouTube, I guess, if you have some ideas. So Dan, just curious, what is happening? Is there a native connector for that or
so
not?
There's a beta connector that Power BI has for Informix.
Got it.
And we've been trying to do it, and the Power BI side seems pretty simple. But where at least where I'm having challenges is with some of the folks on our network side and our DBA side. There's apparently a protocol that needs to be set up, and I've looked out there, and obviously I'm not the guy who does the hands to the keyboard on that side of the house.
Yeah.
But I get an error message, and haven't really found a good answer to it online anywhere. And it's primarily related to DRDA, which is a protocol for connecting to Informix.
Yeah. May I ask? So I know it's in beta, but have you tried contacting the Power BI support team? I'm assuming you guys do have pro licenses, right?
Yeah, we're actually a partner with Microsoft, the company I'm doing this work for.
Oh, brilliant. Have you tried contacting the support?
I haven't yet. Yeah.
So I'll admit that I had my own kind of preconceived notions, I guess. I'm like, hey, big company support, who's going to listen? But I will say that I'm kind of surprised. And the Microsoft Power BI support was phenomenal. If anything, a little too too enthusiastic. So I reported something and they said, oh, we talked to the team and it's a bug, and yeah, we'll get it fixed. And every week they would send me an email saying, hey, apologies, the bug isn't fixed yet, we're working on it. And I'm like, guys, stop, just let me know when it's fixed. I don't really need an email from you every week. But they did that, and yeah, so they were really good. Oddly, I always find it hard to kind of figure out the right place. I always have to look for it and so forth. And maybe I should. So here we go. So copy link address.
There's tons of information. It's always tough finding the exact spot to get the right answer.
Yeah. So, but I mean, maybe the URL isn't that hard, I guess. So support.pro, and I'm going to paste that in this chat window, in our own chat window as well. So you have pro support. Yeah, these guys are, as I said, I mean, I was really impressed. They jumped right on it, and yeah, and they were.
I don't think there's anything wrong with the connector. I think there's just something wrong with us, but.
Yeah, but I think
that's us. I mean, the company I'm doing some work with.
Yeah. And the good news is that I think I've seen how Power BI team works, and maybe another team, or maybe the same Microsoft in a different era, you would have contacted them and they would have said, oh yeah, that's beta, But this team is kind of the opposite. I mean, if it's in beta, they're even more kind of ears to the ground, saying, hey, what's going on? How can we fix it, and so forth. So I think this would get traction. I mean, and of course, yeah, I mean, their support team is pretty good.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Terrific. All right, folks. So let's switch over. Let me look at the YouTube chat. Okay, so I did get a few questions. Let me see. Which ones? So that was Robert Klein. Theodore is saying, yeah, CSV files get imported to CSV. Oh, sorry, SQL. Yeah, hey. So the funny thing is, I think the joke's on us, the data guys, because guys, if you think about it, we have this joke, right? I mean, export to Excel and all that stuff, and we talk about how everything ends up in Excel, right? But that's not quite true. That's not quite true. And if you think about it, everything ends up in PowerPoint. Or, well, that's, was the truth in the companies that I work with, including Microsoft. And I would bet that that's still true in a lot of companies. And I want to change that, because I feel like these data workers, right, these data busy bees, man, we are overworked and underappreciated. And one problem is that we're always this cog in the machine, kind of in the background, just cranking away this stuff. I think we need to step up, right? So and yeah, we're gonna have to find ways to do that. But this can't stand. This is unfair, right? Where I'm kind of cranking out stuff in the back, and then somebody else sticks it, pastes it on PowerPoint, presents it, and well, and again, I'm not saying it happens all the time, but could happen that they get the accolades and everything, right? So, and we have nobody to blame but us. So, you might have these preconceived notions like, oh, I am good at this, and oh no, I'm an introvert, and any of that. And what I've seen is, with my own journey and with the other entrepreneurs that I've seen, is that none of that matters, right? And a classic way is, if you look at the CEOs of top companies, they have such different personalities. Are there not kind of shy CEOs? You would find a lot of examples, right? Are there not introverted CEOs? Are there loudmouth CEOs? Sure, right? So, and they've all gotten to where they are. Same thing with politicians. Same thing with other things, right? So those things don't matter. Certainly don't matter as much as we think they do. So for example, let's just take kind of public speaking. Public speaking is a skill, and it's a learned skill, right? It's not in our genetics, right? So it's a learned skill, and anybody can do it. Will I be the same as Tony Robbins? No. And that's a key. You're going to be you, but you can develop that 100% you. So in my, oh, by the way, quick shout out to my second channel, Power On Now. Power On Now. And you can go to youtube.com/Power On Now, or if you go to my channel, then you're going to find the link on the side as well, right? So, yep, right here. So I had talked about Power On Now. I had talked about this person in this video. I mentioned. Oh gosh, I'm blanking out his name. David something. Gosh. What was his message? Oh, Can't Hurt Me. That's his book. Let's find him. Can't Hurt Me. David Goggins. Okay, I got the David right. David Goggins. Can't Hurt Me. Amazing personality. He was killing cockroaches for a living, and turned it around. Is the only person ever to go through like these 3 trainings, the Army Rangers, Navy SEALs, which is called Hell Week. Think about that, something called Hell Week, and then something in Air Force, right? So and he held the world record for pull-ups, which was, by the way, it was like 4,000 something in 17 hours, right? So an ultra marathoner has completed so many races. So incredible guy, and what he had was this idea. Of the 40% you. 40% you. So his idea, and again, you may or may not believe in God or higher power, but anyway, that's the way he tells his story, so David Goggins. And the way he tells is, imagine you died and you went to heaven, and you had the pearly gates, and of course God is all-knowing, and he looks at you and like, oh, cool, you made it to heaven, you did good, awesome. But then you peek over, like at his sheet, and it says 40%. And you say, well, I made it to heaven, I'm happy, but what is that 40%? And he said, well, David, you made a living killing cockroaches, and you provided for your family, you did right by everybody, but there was a better you, which you never got to become. Should we live our lives that way? Right? I mean, and of course he talks about, like, if you're there in heaven and you just found this out, are you really in heaven? Right? I mean, are you going to be happy there? So everybody may not agree with that, but there's a core message there. There's something there, right? So you can say all of these things to yourself that, oh, I'm not good at this. I'm good in the background. I'm okay just sitting at my desk and cranking out these reports. I'm good at the techie stuff, right? Or you can step up and say, what the hell? If they can do it, so can I, right? So often we compare ourselves with others and we go, I don't know, we start saying negative things. We feel jealous, or we say, oh man, I'm never going to be that, or something like that. What if we saw something and just took that as an example of what is possible? What is freaking possible? If they can do that, so can I, right? So put those aside and be the better you, my friend. I mean, that is the quest, and it is so fun. I want you to enjoy that journey. Don't go on the journey thinking like, oh, until I'm the best me, I'm not going to be happy. No, don't peg your happiness with it, right? So another great guy. So this is David Goggins. Another great person was is Sean Aker. And he talked about his book, his Happiness Advantage, by the way. So now you're getting to know my book list. Actually, I have not read Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins yet. So Happiness Advantage, great book. He's got a TED Talk, really famous. Right, so what he talked about was happiness. And what is happiness? And oh gosh, I don't want to lose this thread. So happiness is the joy you experience while pursuing your true potential. And you may not agree with that definition, but there's something there. And what he did was that he differentiated between pleasure and joy. And man, I mean, he explained this so simply, and he solved this this question which has haunted me for so long, and I'm like, what is this about? Is it about, kind of plastering a smile on her face? I'm gonna be happy all the time. Is it putting on a rose-colored glasses and always looking at the world that way? And it didn't make sense, because I remember one example, or somebody challenged me and they said, Avi, think about like the world masters at chess. Or there was this young whiz kid we were talking about, a young kid who was a phenom, a chess phenom. It's like, look at him. When he's playing chess, he's not smiling. When Michelangelo was painting the Sistine Chapel, you can bet he was not smiling. He wasn't he wasn't painting that way, right? So, but we mix these things. So Sean Aker talked about joy, and he used such an extreme example, and I love extreme examples because sometimes I use this in Power BI where I just dial it up, right? I say, oh, you're connecting the file one by one. Can you? What if there were 10 files, or 100 files, 1,000 files, right? So I dial it up. So joy, he talked about childbirth. And, there's no pleasure there, but there can be joy. There can be immense joy there, right? So of course, what he warned us was that we often confuse pleasure with happiness. We think that is what happiness is, right? I mean, buying a new car, getting a promotion, getting pay raise, all of that sort of stuff. Don't mix it with that. And he said this, and I agree with him, that throughout my life, whenever I've chased pleasure, I've gotten myself in deep trouble. I've gone awry. I've just ended up in a bad place. Even if things worked out, even if what I was aiming for was, oh yeah, that thing is going to give me pleasure, right? I mean, that promotion, that job, that money, whatever, I ended up always in a bad place. So step away from that. All right, cool. So 100% you. So again, guys, how do we get here? Let's see if I can retrace, right? So we had a great discussion, but another thing that I'm passionate about is that I want you to do the data stuff, but more. Rise up, be the 100% you. And it may not be exactly the way I'm describing, right? So of course, what I'm talking to you about is that don't just crank out the reports, but step up, present it as well, right? Find opportunities, find every opportunity to do that. Ask for that. Heck, ask for forgiveness rather than permission. Just, I mean, if that's what it takes, right? So, but that's just kind of my version. You're gonna have to find your version. Cool, awesome. So, cool. Well, folks. So I know we talk about the tech stuff, but if you ask me, then the lessons that I'm sharing on my second channel are the ones that really matter. Right, so I'll share something else with you, and promise we'll switch over to your Power BI questions after that. Is that in our business, in kind of learning, we're always looking at a lot of numbers and stuff, and like, oh, okay, well, these many people are subscribing to us, and these many comments we're getting. We're looking at a lot of numbers, right? But I was talking to our teammate Marianne. A lot of you who are inside the Learn Power BI family know her probably pretty well, and we got started talking about how I had grown up watching these Bollywood movies where every single time the bad guy was this rich dude and the good guy was always this, this humble, poor person and fighting against this big establishment. And man, those things burrow inside your head without you even realizing it. And so because of that, and I'm sure a host of other reasons, I feel guilty about money. I feel that money is bad. I feel bad for charging money, right? I mean, and if you think about it, and if you are, let's say you don't have the money in your life that you think you need, but at some level, you have these feelings about money where you're guilty and all the money blocks they're called, right? Well, guess what? I mean, until you resolve those, nothing that you can do in this outer world, nothing, videos you can fidget and metrics you can change, it is not going to do anything, right? Or it's not going to have, it's going to have like a minuscule impact, not that big impact. And what I found is if you do work on this inner journey and you solve those, if you have inner breakthroughs, that reflects in the outer life. So folks, I mean, if you ask me, that those are the more important lessons. So follow me there if any of this kind of appeal to you. Awesome. Okay, I promise. Power BI questions. Let's get there. Oh boy, lots of lots of questions on YouTube. I'm gonna keep those. And Keisha, do you have a question? And Nancy, if you're still on, I would love to talk to you. Let's open it up to. So actually, we did take a question from the class. It was a quick one, but we did. So let's do. All right, so Vishwanath was asking what is the salary for Power BI developers, Hero Seabird, 120 to 150K, if you also know SQL. Now, hey, salary is a tricky thing. It's funny. What's the salary of Power BI developer? I don't know what to say. So Theodore said $120 to $150K. Of course, if you're an employee, it's going to be a package and there's going to be benefits and all that stuff. I can say that contract rates of anybody who's kind of good are going to be 200 plus. Of course, so I don't do consulting anymore myself. I train others to be a consultant, right? So if you need more information on that, just go to learnpowerbi.com and scroll through kind of what we do. Actually, I'll just open it up really quick. Right, so learnpowerbi.com. I mean, when I was working, I was charging 300. Now, of course, if you go out there, they're as high as 400, maybe even higher. Now, of course, that is per hour. Now, if you work on a project basis, or sometimes you do trainings and stuff, it can be really high, right? So I charge, so the per day can be anywhere from maybe 5 to 10,000 per day, and I think it can even be higher, right? So and of course it can be lower as well. I mean, so actually 1,000 as well. Wouldn't go lower than that if you're good. For the folks who are starting out, well, it would still be 100 plus, and yeah, this is starting out, believe it or not, right? And if you're overseas where you have the exchange rate in your favor, then I've seen kind of rates maybe on the 50 plus side. If it's under 50, man, either you're really desperate or you don't know what you're doing, right? So I probably wouldn't hire them, right? So yeah, it runs the gamut. And of course, the challenge of salary is so there are some companies. There's one company, I can't remember its name, but what they did was they made their salary information not public, but everybody can see everybody else's salary. If you think about it, this is the biggest chip that companies use to discriminate. All right, so what salary are you going to get has little to do with your capabilities. It comes down to negotiation skills, and I'm not sure why that is the case, but in some of the studies that I've heard and stuff is that women don't negotiate as hard as men do. So I'm not saying that is the cause for the the kind of gender pay gap and so forth, but that is one of the causes. So imagine you go to a company and you knew the salary. Then they couldn't do something like this. They'd say, hey, look, you hired, they're my colleague, they're my peer, they're doing the same role as me. How come you're paying him 20K more, right? So salary becomes this other game and so forth. Cool. All right, so good question. So let me come back to the folks on the phone. Are there any questions on the phone? Cool, let me switch back to YouTube. And again, on the phone, just unmute yourself and talk. Oh, Charles had some comments there. I did take a chance to read the comments here. More useful. Cool. How do you know whether to create a column using DAX in desktop or via query editor? Oh, that's an easy one, to create in query editor. If I have a column of date, let's take these two. So thank you. So folks, I apologize. I've tried it before where I took like whoever asked the first question, but it gets too crazy. So we just I just we'll pick up whatever comes next. So if I didn't answer your question, and when I ask for a question, like watch for when I'm kind of winding up a question, and then kind of post it again. So this is a good one. This is this is a really good one. Create a column in DAX or query editor. So my answer, always in query editor. Ooh. Okay, fine. There's an asterisk there. There's one scenario at least that I can think of where I don't do it in the query editor. So always in query editor. That would be my answer to you. Always in query editor. Now, query editor. If by the way, if you're just starting out, I should have this warning at the beginning of all of these sessions, because sometimes people jump on and they've just found my channel and then they go, whoa, what is this, right? I mean, because sometimes we jump off into the deep end. Is that if you're just starting out, go watch this tutorial. When I'm not live, it's focused right here, and ignore that 19 playlist. It's just the first video in there, which is 60 minutes long, so it's a pretty compact tutorial. But in there is the idea that I talk about, where query editor is a kitchen of Power BI. So that means any kind of clean shape transform should happen there. And I totally believe in that, right? So if you're adding a column, so again, if you've seen the video, you've seen the analogy that I use, right? So imagine you're doing some cooking. In the kitchen, you have all the utensils, which is all the things that you have in the ribbon up there, right? Those are all of the blender, the knives, all of that is there with you in the kitchen, right? And then there's a trash can analogy, which I'll save for later. So it is super powerful place to be doing this. You have everything available to you. Why wouldn't you do it there, right? And it doesn't make any sense, right? So query editor should be the way you create a column. What is the exception? I know of only one. The exception is the DAX path function. This is used to flatten hierarchies, traverse paths actually, right? So I don't know if any easy, it is so easy in DAX, but I don't know of an easy way to do this in query editor. So this is the only thing that I find myself doing in DAX if ever I need it. Everything else should be in here. So there are other reasons for it, but I wouldn't go to them here. Yeah, I mean, hopefully I convinced you enough. Okay. Wow, so there's some discussion going on about the pay gap thing that we talked about. Men don't respond well to women who maybe negotiate as well. Yeah, that's a whole can of worms. Of course, we did a whole session on women in Power BI, and we that was a really good discussion. Cool. Hey, on the phone, do you have a question? Okay, I'll just say, yeah, go on mute unless you have a question. How to integrate Power BI to custom applications? And Vishwanath, yes, let's take your question. And especially because I think I saw it earlier as well. Mary, yes. So folks, I'm not sure. Maybe I shouldn't feel this way, but we did do. By the way, you can watch the recordings of all the past TalkPowerBI. Some people do, which I'm always surprised, because for me it's a live experience. I'm glad to be kind of here with you guys. Let's go back here. Perfect. So there is one on women in Power BI, and so I have a daughter, and there was some discussion I was having with her, and I felt like and yeah, but I got so yeah, a little bit of story. If you haven't attended that, then one day what we found out, we did kind of a quick, just rough kind of estimate just by looking at the names of the students who enroll, and we realized that we only had about 20% students who were female, and that shocked me because I was expecting in my mind to be 50-50 because I didn't see any reason why women would be less interested, less enrolled. Now, of course, later when I dug into that, I realized that that 20% is almost pervasive. So if you look at like how many women enroll for computer science or tech degrees, the number is around 20%, right? So in a way, what my course is reflecting is just the reality on the outside. But of course, hey, I think I control this. So we had a good discussion there, and we had some really powerful women, and I want to believe that there's hope, and I want to believe that we all, both men and women, we both want equality, right? So we both have the same goal. Now, of course, how we get there and so forth, I'm hopeful we'll figure it out. We'll take small steps. And of course, as Mary pointed out, and Mary said, hey, Avi, thanks for saying data person, not data guy, right? So, of course, if you don't realize that what our biases are, one of my favorite movies, oh gosh, Crash, I think. Anyway, it's about bias. I think it's Crash. And what was brilliant was, and actually it's been shown in studies as well, sometimes the most biased people are the ones who say that, oh no, I'm not biased at all, right? So they did a whole study and all that. Anyway, all right, so let's come back here. So good discussion there. Let's help Vishwanath for now. So Vishwanath is saying, how do I integrate Power BI in custom application? That's easy. That's Power BI embedded. So let's do, actually there might be a few options. Let's do 25, and let's do, okay, so, excuse me, how to integrate Power BI to custom application. So I'm assuming it's like a web-based application. Then your options are Power BI embedded, and well, I mean, if you have like thousands of users, then Power BI embedded is a great option. Great option. But for a smaller user base, I've heard people say that, oh, it's not cost effective. And I don't remember off the top of my head what's the cost, but I think the base cost starts at a few $1,000s a month. It used to be $5,000 a month at par with Power BI Premium, but I think there are lower priced SKUs as well. So a few $1,000s a month. But again, I mean, for some cases that might not work either. So if you weren't going to do Power BI embedded, what would you do? And man, this got really tricky, right? So this got really tricky, and of course, no, I'll start with a warning that people would use publish to web and use that, but publish to web does make it public, and I mean, unless you're using a public data set, don't use that. If you have anything sensitive, my advice is not to use that. It's not worth the risk. And again, people think that it's a funny URL. Who's going to find it? Well, I don't know. It's not about humans looking. It's about the machines, like the Google bots and the Bing bots and stuff. And by the way, I mean, Microsoft actually, if you say publish to web, they say, I'm not sure if they do it, but they say, oh, if you publish to web, we can showcase it in our promotional materials. We can say, hey, look, Avi has built this report. And there you go. Your report is now featured in a Microsoft newsletter or something like that, right? So not advised. But again, I mean, it became really challenging. So the other day I came across this thing, and it's not a new feature. It's not a new feature, but it's one of those things, Power BI, right? I mean, there's so much to learn, which is okay. I don't want you to ever panic about that. Just take a deep breath. It's okay. Less is more. Less is more. Focus on concepts. But so I'll show you the option. Let me see if do we have anything interesting here? Demo scratch. Country population, Power BI drill through. Let's try that. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, it's not quite displaying right, but there is an option. Okay. I guess not in the report. Is it in the dashboard? I guess it is in the dashboard. Okay, so hold on, guys. I'll switch to something else which does have a dashboard. Perfect. Oh man, where is it? Oh, where is it? Where is it? Published. Oh, maybe it is report. Maybe it is a report. Sorry, as you see me hunt around. I think maybe this new look is messing me up. This new look. Let me turn it off. All right, we're getting there. Now I know where to go. The file menu. And yes. Oh my gosh. So this option. I think this is like mind-blowing. This is like crazy good. So it's like publish to web, but secure. This thing is just brilliant. You could do that. Now, of course, it's not going to be as awesome as Power BI Embed. Power BI Embedded, it's funny, this is also called Embed. But this works differently. So this one, if you just click on it, it basically gives you an HTML link or a kind of this HTML code. You can link it that way, embed it that way. Power BI Embedded is different, right? So, and I'll talk a little bit about, not to say that I'm very familiar with Power BI Embedded, but I'll talk about, so I'll call this Secure Embed. So with Power BI Embedded, you can pass in the user authentication. So imagine if you have an application and I'm logged in. Let's say you are Dropbox, right? So I don't know, right? Dropbox, and I go in and I log in to Dropbox, right? And you know me as Avi, then you can pass in. I don't think I should have logged in, but you can pass in that, oh, this is Avi, and show Avi's reports, right? So you can have that set up in the back. This one is going to be different because it's going to ask them to sign in. I don't think that can be avoided unless they're signed into Power BI. And so basically, they would need a login, and of course with that they would need a pro license. But you know how I was saying Power BI Embedded is thousands of dollars to start with, and if somebody has a specific number, like what is the starting point of Power BI Embedded, do let me know. All right, but with this one, how much does a pro license cost? It's $10 per user per month. I don't know, $9.99 or something like that, right? $10 per user per month. So again, if you have a small user base, if you have 50 users, this is just $500, right? If you have 5 users, just $50. And of course, by the way, the secure embed you can use in a whole ton of other scenarios, right? And right. So this one is a really cool option. So I think that's the best advice I have, unless somebody else had. Well, Power BI Embedded it can be really cost effective depending on the number of users. So let me actually see if Power BI Embedded pricing. What are the SKUs? So somebody once joked that you need a PhD to figure out Microsoft pricing, which I think is kind of unfortunate. Oh man, I won't be able to help you there. Yeah, there is a simpler math. Bridges Power BI node. It can be by hour, by month. I don't know. Let's try that. Oh hey, you know what? It's not that bad. Ooh, this is actually not bad at all. So the cheapest thing you can buy is $735 per month. So again, right? I mean, you might say like, whoa, that's way too expensive, right? But since I was thinking higher, right? Since I was thinking PowerBI Premium, which starts at 5,000, so you can start there. Now, of course, if you have 10,000 users, this might not be good enough, right? I mean, they might come back to you and hate you, say, hey, these reports never load, right? So obviously, you're gonna have to judge. Try it and see and so forth. And of course, it's Azure, so you can upgrade and so forth. But the starting cost is not that bad. Wow, I'm gonna screenshot this. Should I? Oh well, forget it. A4, A5. Oh well, I'll get the whole thing. And of course, I'll put the link here as well. Oops, wrong place. Where'd I go? Pricing. There we go. So So is it affordable or not? Is it cost effective or not? It all depends, right? I mean, if you can serve 10,000 users by paying 735, then boy, that's definitely very cost effective. So that's going to have a lot of different scenarios. I'm cool. I'm glad I looked up because it certainly changed my opinion because I had a higher number in my mind. Starts at $735 per month. Cool. All right. So let's see. And again, on the phone, folks, if you have a question, just unmute yourself and talk. Oh, Charles had a question. If you're using today versus local now. Oh, Charles, do you mind unmuting yourself? I'm not sure I fully get the context of the question. Or was that a comment? Oh, maybe that was a comment. Okay, if it was a comment, then ignore me. Oh. Okay, cool. Yeah, unmute and...
My comment was just that it was the column in DAX. If you were using today, it would be immediate versus having to wait on a refresh if you're using local now in a query editor column.
Yeah.
That's an one time where you're going to get, it's going to give you the
yes
immediate. So that's a time when you might get a benefit out of doing it in DAX.
Well, I will argue against that though. What I'll say is if you're really using calculated column, they're not dynamic. Right? They're only calculated at refresh. So they're going to give you the same result. Right? Calculated column is going to run at refresh. Query editor runs at refresh. So I feel
with a calculate even in DAX, if you write it in DAX.
Yep, calculated columns are not dynamic. Yeah, measures are. So yeah, measures are awesome. I love measures. Right. Yeah.
Fair enough.
But yeah, calculated column, they're static. Yep. So it's going to calculate a refresh, and of course, it might be slightly different. Like if you like really timestamp it, because I think the query editor runs and it does the timestamp, and then after that loads the model, and then it does the calculated column. So whatever that lag is. But of course, I don't think anybody would. Yeah, that would be material. Cool. All right. Good point. I'm glad you raised that because I'm sure others were probably thinking about this too. Okay, cool. Let's see if there are any other question. Yeah. So Vishwanath, to follow up on this, you do need more licenses. So if you would need as many licenses, and again, that's where you were saying PowerBI embedded. So if you have, let's say, So if you have, however many users are on your platform, like, so again, think Dropbox, right? Dropbox. So let's say Vishwanath works at Dropbox, and Dropbox is wants to show Power BI reports so that I can see exactly how much space I've used over time, how much sharing has done, and that sort of stuff, right? So, Power BI is cool, and they just want to integrate in there, and it's a huge advantage for companies because, man, you try to do that with like native code. You try to hire your developers to do that, and it's not a great idea. And a lot of one of our students in the Learn Power BI family, what they run is that they run a solution, right? Of course, it's online based, an app, and all that sort of stuff for water parks, right? So you've heard of theme parks, right? But they just focus on kind of water parks, and they say, hey, if you run a water park, we have this solution for you. It'll let you run everything very efficiently. Your concessions, right, where you're selling food, the rides, all that sort of stuff, right? It'll let you manage that. And it's, so it's a whole application that they've built. And let's say they have hundreds of customers of that, right? So they have maybe 50 different companies, and each company would have maybe some licenses of users can log in and so forth, right? So that's their setup. But now the companies keep asking them for reports. And then... So the challenge is that they, of course, probably use some native code to write their application. They can build reports that way, but they almost have to build everything from scratch. Or Power BI gives you this amazing structure, this platform, and you don't have to hire developers. You can hire somebody who knows how to create a Power BI report. And you probably would need to hire somebody who knows how to do Power BI modeling as well. And we talked about that. And hey, those people, you should pay them well because man, they're going to add a ton of value, right? So, but for the most part, you can have people who know how to create Power BI reports, which is, which shouldn't be expensive at all. You can just train somebody in-house and you leverage this platform. So that's what we're talking about. But again, if you have hundreds of users, you would need every one of the persons who is logging in is they're going to need a sign in. They're going to need a sign in to powerbi.com. And since they're looking at a shared report, that is going to need a license, right? So, hey, them's the rules, my friend, right? So that's the way it works. By the way, you can, if you go to my channel, in the first playlist here, we've put the good stuff up top. There is a video there which talks about, oops, I shouldn't have done that. Well, okay, great. So the third video, okay, not the second one, but talks about licensing in a little bit more detail. So they're going to need a license. Because yeah, so with this embed, and you can try it, so this one is a really easy option to try. Go ahead and powerbi.com, embed it, and put it on a public website. WordPress, Squarespace, doesn't matter. I don't care, right? Put it there and see what happens. What you're going to see is it's going to ask you to sign in, and of course, if you sign in and you're looking at a shared report, you need a license. But again, right? So if you have 5 users, then this is just $50. Versus $735. But if you have 1,000 users, then this is going to be $1,000, and that is now probably a more cost-effective option. So I'll let you weigh. Cool. So yeah, some other ideas. You could start a PowerBI embedded, which allows you to assign a workspace. Yep. So PowerBI embedded is definitely a way to go. If you want to be able to share dashboards and the people you want to share with need E5 or E3 plus Pro licenses too. I don't think they need E5 or E3. So E5 or E3 are like Office 365 license. They could just have a Power BI Pro license, which is $10 per month. And of course, some companies do have an E5 license, which includes Power BI. So if they have that, then they already have that. They don't need to pay. Cool. Any other questions online? And Manny, I see your comment from earlier. Thank you. I love your support. Thanks for that. So Mary had said, I love your videos. Just got introduced this week. We're happy to have you on. Keisha had a question I'll cover in the back. So again, folks on the phone, just unmute and ask if you need to. Otherwise, we'll go through this. Edmund V, I had pasted your question. But let me try to see. If you're still on, Edmund, let me know. I sometimes, if you're not on, I would rather take somebody's question who's live, just in case I have some follow-up questions to that. So let's do this. Oops, there we go. And so this is a loaded question. I'm finding it hard to find jobs as a BI analyst. Well, my short advice is, a few things. For one, get the book, What Color is Your Parachute? Color is Your Parachute. Brilliant book. Let me say a little bit more. Man, this might not be what you expected to hear, but I'm going to talk about mindset, right? So we were talking about this earlier in the call. So the first thing that you need to do, what does job hunting look like? What is your goal for job hunting? The goal for job hunting is not to update your resume, not to send out your resume, not to land interviews, not to do any of those other things. If you ask me, the first goal for job hunting is take care of yourself. All right, so oftentimes job hunting can feel hard. It's rejection. It's rejection after rejection after rejection. It's no, right? I mean, you try, and we take it very personally. We take it extremely personally, and we think that the rejection is for us, like fundamentally for us. I am not good enough, right? I am not good enough. And that's a very dangerous place to be in. Extremely dangerous. Because we were talking about the money mindset earlier. If you think money is evil, how can you ever attract money to your life? You will sabotage yourself. And that's what we end up doing. Right? So if you are in this mindset where like, oh, we're kind of desperate and you're struggling, and you use those words. So hey, words have power. Words have incredible power. We create a reality with the words that we speak, and the next level, the words that we think. All right. So watch out for the words, right? So and again, if you have a good friend, recruit them. Say, hey, can you call out every time I use something negative? Say something negative. Like, oh my gosh, this is such a struggle. I'm never gonna find a job. All of this, right? So what do we do, by the way? We make things pervasive and permanent. And by the way, I learned this from Sean Aker as well. Man, soak up his book, Happiness Advantage, that I talked about. Pervasive and permanent. Pervasive and permanent. And if you think about it, so I'm a Stephen Few fan as well. Sorry, I am a Stephen Few fan, but in this case, I was thinking about Stephen Hawking. I'm not messing up his name, am I? Right. So, so the famous scientist. So if you think about it, space and time. So we take a problem, and we expand it in space, and we expand it in time. Right. Expand it in space, expand it in time. Pervasive and permanent. Like imagine I got passed over for promotion. Right. So I was expecting a promotion, I didn't get it. And what do we say? What do we say to ourselves? What do we think? Right? Again, words have power. It's like, no one appreciates me. Such a simple thought, right? It doesn't take any time to think this thought. It just takes a second, right? It just crosses your brain before you know it. It almost seems like it's not your thought, No one appreciates. See what we did here, right? We took this one thing and just expanded it in space. We connected with everybody we know. No one appreciates me. Sorry, that's what I want to say. No one appreciates me. Right? All right? Are you with me? And then I say, I never get what I deserve. What have you done? You expanded now in time. Right? You say, oh, I've never gotten it in the past. I never get it in the future. And words have power. Words create your reality. If this is what you think, guess what? You're going to keep coming back to this. You're going to keep bringing more of this in your life. If you think no one appreciates you, no one will appreciate you. If you think you don't never get what you deserve, you will never get what you deserve, right? So words have power. So let's come back to our job hunting thing. So rejection, and you go into a desperate thing, and so what's gonna happen when you do land that dream interview? Oh my gosh, you're excited, like whatever, think of the company. I remember when I was interviewing Microsoft, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have my whole story. I was laid off, and my daughter was being born, and I was like, at my wit's end, and I was definitely desperate, right? So you walk in. And again, I'm not saying, maybe you're nothing like that. So obviously I'm talking in general. I'm not talking about Keisha. Maybe I should talk about me, right? So what was the dialogue that was possible? Now, of course, I was lucky to land that job in Microsoft because that's where I found Power BI. So I was incredibly lucky. But what was possibly going back in my head back then? And it could be a whole host of things, right? But I'm like, oh man, please help me to make it work, right? And then there could be other thoughts where like, oh, I hope they don't find out. And this is another thing, right? This imposter syndrome. We walk around thinking that we're not good enough. What we have is not good enough. Oh my gosh, that's a terrible thought. And by the way, I heard one speaker who has this thing, and it's crazy how well it works. I haven't done that yet, but she encourages people to write this. Maybe she's talking to women, but I guess men can do it too. Borrow from their wives. But she said, write this in big letters on your mirror with lipstick. And I forget her story. I don't know what she said. Right. So but if you go with these set of thoughts, right? Or so whatever. Please, I'm so desperate. Or I hope they don't find out. How are you going to communicate in that interview? Without even realizing it, you're going to jeopardize yourself. Right? And you're going to answer things very differently. Imagine if they ask you, why should we give you this job? Without even realizing, you may not realize it, but you'll come across as desperate. They don't want to hear that, right? No, you shouldn't be talking about yourself. You should be talking about them. But you will inevitably is like, oh well, yeah, I've been looking for a job for 6 months or whatever. You're going to say something to that again without even realizing, right? So again, So I think the first goal of job hunting is take care of yourself. Take care of yourself and do meditation, do whatever it takes, and do not go in this stuff. to go in that I'm good enough. So one piece of advice that I'll share here is that I talked about kind of how this is rejection. It's a whole series of no, 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 right? On and on and on. It feels like on and on. And hey, right? So, but think about this, right? So again, hopefully I can shift your perspective from here. Like, sure, you're getting a no, and you're taking it very personally, right? And you're making a rejection of you. But think about the last time you found a job, right? And what happens? It's a whole series of no, 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 no. But man, then there's a yes. What happened? And if you think about it, you didn't fundamentally change. I mean, maybe you learned a new language or whatever, or new skill in the meantime, but frankly, I doubt that that's why you were hired. Because frankly, how much did you really learn? You don't really learn till you apply it, right? So you don't really learn it, right? So let's not, focus on that, right? But if you think about it, when I look at my job hunts, then nothing changed in me fundamentally, because it wasn't about me, right? I mean, I want you to say that. It's not about me. It's about the fit. These no's, either you were not a good fit, or you were not able to communicate that you're a good fit, right? That's the other aspect, right? That's why taking care of yourself is so important, because then you will be primed for this. Like, hey man, I'm a freaking rock star, and you'll be lucky to have me. Okay, maybe not that far, but you get the idea, right? So you were just not a good fit, and then suddenly you find this yes, and what happens? It's crazy, right? I mean, every time I've been on a job hunt, it's like no, 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 and then yes, and they love me. They can't have enough of me. They're like, how soon can you start? Isn't it like that every single time? How soon can you start? How soon can you start? I'm like, dude, seriously? Right? I mean, they can't have you start soon enough. They love you. So if you know that that's happening eventually, then why would you beat yourself up so much, right? So, cool. All right. So, so mindset is important. There are a whole bunch of other tips in What Color Is Your Parachute? Richard Bollins. Great book. And just one other thing that I would add, and this is in the opening pages in the book, and that's why I love this book so much. Frankly, you get 10 times or 100 times or 1,000 times or worth whatever you're going to pay for this book, because I hope your job pays you that much, right? In the first few pages. And it has this pyramid where it talks about how people search for jobs. And what is the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about searching for a job? Most people, I know what I used to do. I'm like, I gotta update my resume. The bloody fucking resume, man. I hate it. I hate it. And I made a resolve once that I'm never gonna find my next job using a resume. So and after reading this book, right? So you think about your resume and then you do some other stuff. The oddest thing is that, and then the book talks about how people actually hire. And it's reverse. It's exactly reversed. Resume is their last freaking resort. So we search for jobs in the opposite way. And of course, the book talks about why we do it this way. Because actually, you may not realize it this way. Besides this goal, taking care of yourself, the goal in the job hunt for these two people, or what's important for them, are different. Anyway, so I wouldn't give away any more of the book. It's a really cool book. It changed my life. It's not just a jobs hunt book. It's a career guidebook. It's also a life guidebook. Lots of stuff there. Cool. Man, that was good stuff. Thank you, Keisha. All right, guys, if you got something out of that, let me know. Because sometimes maybe I should just stick to Power BI. No. I do know that this is the good stuff, right? So as I said, man, I mean, I know, right? I don't have as many followers on the new channel. I think I'm getting close to 200. But my best stuff, my best content is there. By the way, this is another sign. So Power On Now, this channel, for this channel, it just flows out of me, this stuff. In fact, I have so many videos recorded that I was working with Marianne on her team, whom a lot of you know, and what happened is that she did the video and she was like looking to schedule the video, and we figured out the videos that I already have if we schedule them the way we're scheduling, they'll go out till June 2020. And yeah, anyway, so that's the good stuff, mates. All right, let's come back and let's see if we can take a Power BI question. All right, so Keisha is saying that was helpful. All right, great. William, my friend, how are you doing? Where are you watching us from? I never know what to say. Like, where are you dialing in from? That's like what you're not dialing into anything, right? So where are you watching us from? Let me know. All right, let's do this, and we'll say timestamp it 54. Well, yeah. Okay, new to Power BI. What an awesome place to be. I almost envy you. I remember my journey when I started. You know, it's gonna be such a fun journey. Let's try this. Okay. I need to break data into 3 categories based on value. I have this working using a calculate nested if statement. If there's a command, a measure instead of adding a column. Yes, I will say break data into 3 categories. So I would definitely highly recommend my tutorial here, and it's ignore the playlist. It's just the first one.
Welcome to the
so this thing, Power BI tutorial from beginner to pro, desktop to dashboard in 60 minutes. You can see it's people have liked this video, and yeah. So this is man, this is pretty good, if I may say so myself, right? So it talks about that. So so measures is the way to go. Let me see if I can finally bring up a Power BI file. I think it's time. We're like 2 hours into the call, and I haven't opened a Power BI file. So let's open. So as you're going to watch in that tutorial is that Power BI, so the challenge with Power BI is that it is not like Excel. It is not like SQL. And often people come into this with Excel or SQL background, and they struggle. Because there is one really important step in learning Power BI, which is unlearning. Right? You got to leave some of that stuff behind. If you keep carrying that, you will never progress with Power BI. Right? So you keep holding on to that. You got to let that go. And if you don't let that go, then it's Power BI is always going to feel like you're swimming upstream. Right? You're struggling against the current. Once you do let go of that, then you're swimming with the stream. Everything becomes easier. Surprisingly, shockingly easier. Right? So sometimes I see people writing really complicated DAX. And, well, not always. Sometimes you got to write complex DAX. That's okay. You know, I'm open to that. But I look at that, what they've done, and I see, if only you had followed the principles of Power BI, if only you had swam downstream, you would have so much easier. So the way Power BI works is modeling is key. Everything is the power is under the hood, right? So under the hood there are the data tables and the lookup tables, right? So data table, lookup tables. Lookup tables, I also call them the who, what, where, when, how. And data tables have the numbers, right? So they have the value. So in this case, I have the sales amount, and then these things are how I want to slice and dice them, right? How I want to slice and dice them, which sounds similar to what you're saying about break data into 3 categories, right? So if you set it up that way, then you kind of define a measure in your data table, and you know, so this is going to have the magic of define once, use everywhere. So this my measure is just sum of sales amount, and again, it can be a complicated measure, could be anything, right? Doesn't matter. You're doing something, you're doing some math. It could be like standard deviation, whatever, right? But you know, if it's simple, but then again, you can slice and dice it. Or so I'm going to assume that you're meaning the same thing when you say break data into 3 categories. You're saying I want to slice and dice it. I want to see sales by product category, by account, all of that, and you can do all of that and more just out of the box, right? So you wrote your measure sales, which you saw how simple it was. Sales is the sum of sales amount, and then let's change that to a table, or actually let's do a matrix. So we're looking at sales right there, and then you say, show to me by those 3 different categories. Well, you just go to your product table. So again, now you're using your lookup tables. This is the power of lookup tables, right? So so you go to your lookup table and you put in the, kind of the category there, and boom, right? So of course, so I talk about the magic of the DAX measures, where you define once, use everywhere, and right. So yeah, notice that I didn't have to like redefine anything. I don't have to redefine a new measure or anything saying, oh, now I want to see sales by accessories. Now I want to see the sales by bikes. Now I want to see by clothing. No, it just works out of the box, right? And of course, this goes on and on and on. Now I can see category and subcategory, right? And again, I didn't redefine the measure. It's kind of built in. Let's get the plus icon on. Right, so now I can look inside accessories and slice and dice it that way. I can of course use slicers, right? So I can of course and I can do pretty much anything. I can slice and dice it using any table in here, any attribute in any table. Okay, cool. So that's kind of my advice. What I'm going to do next here is just do month here, and we'll kind of end that. Hopefully that helped. Oh gosh.
Yeah, actually, my question's a little bit different.
Oh, okay.
Based on a percentile rating, like 90% and above is satisfactory, 80 to 90.
Okay. Got it.
And less than 80
All
is
right.
chronic.
All right. Got it. I'm glad you spoke up. All right. So let's start a new one then. So, okay. So what is two categories? Got it. So you're saying that there's some measure, some value, and you wanna group them based on. So give me the numbers. Just, it doesn't have to be precise. So if
90% above is satisfactory.
Yeah. Okay.
80 to 90 is at risk.
Oh, got it.
And less than 80 is chronic.
Is okay. Got it. So have you tried to do this already, and have you had some success with doing this?
Yes, I put in a new column.
Yeah.
And I did this with an if statement.
Yeah.
And it worked well. I was wondering if there was a way to do that with a measure instead of a if statement.
Yeah. Just curious. Do you have a feeling like why would measure possibly be better? Is this something you've seen the new column approach that doesn't work? We're hoping measure would work better.
Well, with a small data set, everything looks pretty good, but I'm going to have a client base of about 300,000 that we're going to be tracking. So I'm just wondering if there's a way to keep it from bloating too much.
300,000 who are going to be using what you're creating. Is that right?
Yeah, so this is a report that will get sliced and diced in several different ways.
All right. Okay, cool. I'm still that there are going to be 300,000 users of this report?
No, about 300,000 records.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay, perfect. Yep. So so the challenge with the columns is that they're not dynamic, which we touched upon earlier when we were talking to Nathan Lee, about creating column versus a query editor. So we touched upon that. Actually, let's do this. So 11. So cool. So column, you already done the if statement. I wouldn't go there. So what happens is if you create it using a column. So let's try something similar here. And yeah, I may not show the whole thing. I may just talk about it. But let's say, actually, this one is a little tricky. so if you, let's say in the product table, I added a column which somehow calculated the product sales, right? And then use that sales number to define 3 categories. And I said, if it is greater than this, then it's this category. If it's less than that, this category, that sort of stuff, right? And that's gonna be accurate as far as this goes, but you don't know how the person is gonna slice and dice the data. What if they're looking at products, but only looking at a certain month? What if they're only looking at a certain country? What if they're only looking at a certain customer? Now, of course, in some cases, the metric wouldn't apply. Like you would say that, oh no, this only applies if you're at a product level. Like you can't slice and dice. But in other scenarios, it is valid, right? I mean, so I would create a sales report where I'm identifying something, and then if somebody's looking at Australia, then it needs to be dynamic, right? So that's the challenge. That's the drawback of the column. That it is completely 100% static. It is anything that the user clicks or filters, slicers, filters, anything, it is not going to be responsive to that. So measure is going to have that edge. So generally, I would prefer measure. So how do you define the measure? Let's try it here. So let's do. So we're going to do something simple, but it's going to illustrate the idea. Basically, it's going to be a similar if-then statement. I'm sure there are other approaches too, but it's going to be similar kind of if-then statement. Let me see if we can simulate at least close to what you have. So I'm gonna try to get a percentage in there. Not that it matters that much, but still. So sales. Oh, do I have a cost? I don't have a cost. Interesting. Let me just check that again. Cost, not cost. Okay, cool. So let's try new measure, and we're gonna say cost sum cost product sales total product cost. There we go, in the wrong spot. I'll fix it. Go over here. Oops, cost. I'll add cost, and I'll do profit percentage. So profit percentage equals, so my profit is sales minus cost divided by cost. Oh, wow. Wait, did I do that right? I guess, man. All right. So we have this, and then we can write a measure with the if-then else statement. So profit category bucket, something like that. And you can use switch as well. Switch. Let's try switch. It just makes it look cleaner. So you say switch true, and then you say profit percentage. If it's greater than, I'll just for now just say equal to 0.9. Then high profit. If is greater than let's do something else. Let's do 5. Medium profit, and I'm not sure, greater than, less than 0.5, then low profit. Maybe you don't need it. Maybe this can be used as a default. Let's see how that works. Profit category. Now, of course, a few things here. One, this is what I call a working pivot. I use the term pivot because I grew up in Excel. It's not really pivot, but that's what I call it. And this has nothing to do with how this report is going to be displayed. This is just me kind of trying out stuff. right? So, but of course we see a problem where it is showing a number even when there's like no data. And that's easily fixed though. Let's see, let's go back here. So let's think about this logic, and it's basically profit percentage. Yeah, so if it's blank, interesting. So that is evaluating to true. How can I avoid that? So maybe I can test for it right at the beginning. So I can say if is blank profit percentage, then show blank. Let's try that. Let's see if it. So again, I'm worried about this stuff. Cool. So that looked good. And this one is gonna be dynamic, which you can never achieve with calculated columns. So now I can have as many slicers that I want. So I can say here, slicer. Oh gosh, please let me drop down. Did that work? Oh no, drop down list. So I have years. I'm gonna add month on there. Did that work? Oh, not there. Here. And we're gonna add maybe put the country. And let's see. Let's add some color to it just for fun. And of course we can get specific where we can say if high profit, make it this color, if so, that sort of stuff. Maybe for now I'll just left to right negative bar minimum value. Is that what I want to do? Let's try it. Oh, okay, some color on it. But let's see, so notice all of this stuff, and I can say, well, how are things in 2016 and 2015? What about in March? And all of it is going to be kind of completely dynamic. I can say, oh, I'm not really working on month. Or I can say, hey, how are things in US? Bartle's gauge. I'm trying to find something which is unique, which is different. Sample data set, so it's not changing, but that's because of the data set. It has nothing to do with. I think whoever created this data set must have used a formula to calculate cost. It's the same. But anyway, all right. So did that help?
That definitely has it. That's what I was looking for, kind of like an old case statement.
Yep, perfect. All right, so we're gonna save this file. What is going on? All right, folks, that's good stuff. And TalkPowerBI. By the way, you can get to these files if you join the TalkPowerBI Insiders Club on TalkPowerBI.com. So 2019 line 13, and this is Bill, and create buckets groups using measures. All right, let's go to YouTube if there's anything else. And again, folks on the phone, you can just unmute yourself and talk if you need to. All right, so there's some discussion going on. How do you replicate the SUMIF formula in Power BI? Oh, that's an interesting one. Yeah, admin is saying I watched, but not not understand. Very new to Power BI. That's okay. So so folks, I mean, again, I should probably start with the standard warning. Yeah, Talk Power BI. Sometimes you may feel like if you're new, it may feel like man, this is like really deep, really scary. So the right place to start is my 60 minute. I was going to say 60 seconds. I wish I could pack my knowledge in that one. 60-second tutorial, 60-minute tutorial. And yeah, so that's this guy, PowerBIPro tutorial. So that's the good place to start. And of course, if you want to continue a journey, then I invite you to sign up for my Learn Power BI program, and you can find more information by just going to learnpowerbi.com. I did see one question that I liked. How do you replace sum if? That's a good one. I'm going to hold on to that. Let's see if there's something else. Yeah, so if you're working with dates, my recommendation would be to, again, look at my calendar table, right? Because why settle for any calendar table when you can have the ultimate calendar table? My belief is that if you have a date column, you shouldn't mess with hierarchies. Oh, well, yeah, I don't much care for the hierarchies that get built in. They're okay if you're a beginner, but if you want to progress further in Power BI, you're gonna have to take control of the calendar table. You're gonna have to build your own, and you don't have to build your own from scratch. You can just kind of borrow mine, right? So that's the ultimate calendar table. Mary has the right idea. Calculate sum if. All right. How do you do the conditional formatting? Yeah, let's focus on that. So by the way, next week we should have. Oh shoot, no, it's not conditional formatting. Next week we're doing a video on drill through. I always mix up drill down. There's drill down and there's a drill through. They're different. So next week we'll do that. How to use the time value money functions of money? Really interesting questions, folks. Let's see if I can get to some of them really quick. All right. So, and actually, if I go back, I think Edwin V had a. Yeah. So let's. So I realized that I parked this earlier. So let's do this. Edwin V. We're gonna timestamp it 11:15 and date calendar table. So and if you go to my channel, the good stuff, right? So of course, folks, I'll be candid. I mean, like, my best training is inside my my program, right? So of course, take Power BI courses, Power BI, right? So that is my main course, and it has Zero to Dashboard. By the way, the first module in my course is the expanded version of the 60-minute tutorial that I have on there. So the 60-minute tutorial is a great place to start. Then go do this. Then if you enroll in my course, this is an expanded version of that. So that's 60-minute. So obviously in my course, I don't rush. In YouTube, we had this idea that, if you made it more than 60 minutes and people, you look at a video and like, oh my, 2.5 hours, that's too long. 60 minutes, like, psychologically. So we kept it under 60, but in here, I took my time. So this is about 2.5 hours. The whole course, by the way, is pretty compact, right? Pretty compact, as it should be. As it should be. The core concepts, there's not that many. They're very few, but they're important. They're really important. So Zero to Dashboard is that, and then Zero to Dashboard kind of sets the scene, and then we dive deeper into each core area, right? So then we go query editor, relationships, stacks, visuals, PowerBI.com platform, and that's it, right? So that's, of course, so that's the next step. But start here. And then, of course, we do have a lot of free resources. So the good stuff is right at the top, Learn Power BI. So look at the ultimate calendar table. And so if you have a date column, you can use the built-in hierarchy, but certainly not if you have any hopes, ambitions, dreams of becoming a Power BI pro. Right? So, pros don't do that. Don't use date hierarchies. They use their own calendar table. And again, why settle for any odd calendar table when you can have the ultimate? So you can grab that on my channel here. And yeah, so that channel has a lot of good information, like why calendar table is important, how do you get mine, how do you use it, all of that sort of stuff. So that's going to be good there. So let's take another one, which was how Edwin asked, how do you do sum if? Let's take that one. 18. So it is calculate is one answer, but I'll say before that, maybe you wouldn't even need it. Maybe inbuilt in Power BI. Like, for example, all the slicing and dicing that I showed, right? I mean, where you can have this and then you can have kind of product category. It's possible, depending on how your Excel sheet is, it's possible that this had a whole bunch of series of sum ifs. And I remember how I used to do it. I would have a formula which would read like, hey, what's my column header? Oh, I'm sales. Oh, what's my row header? Mountain bikes. Cool. And then I'm gonna go do a VLOOKUP or something like that. And I said, right, so or maybe a sum if, like sum if this other thing where the column matches mountain bikes, right? So a lot of that, you don't need any of that because of the magic in Power BI of the DAX measures, which are defined once, used everywhere, right? So this measure was just sales, but it works for everything. Like, right, I mean, sum of sales if category is bikes, if subcategory is mountain bikes, right? So some of it might be just inbuilt, but if you want to go beyond that, then look at calculate. And I'm pretty sure it's covered in my tutorial. There are also other DAX videos on my channel as well, so look for calculate. So good advice, Mary. Thanks for helping Edwin out. Let's see if there was anything interesting. How do you do conditional formatting? How to use time value? Yeah, so conditional formatting. So when you're looking at UI, there are two things that I look for, and two things that you should think about as well, because you are designing a UI, a user interface, right? So, So when you're designing your reports, the two things that you need to look for are, is it intuitive, like they get it, right? And then are the features, are they discoverable? Are they, do you have to point it out to somebody? Like, I mean, once you show them, then they get it. Like, oh yeah, got it, right? But if you never tell them, they're never gonna know. And oops, what did I do? Right, so conditional formatting is a little bit tricky. I find it a little bit tricky because I found it in a few different places. I found it in either in this drop down, conditional formatting, but sometimes, and let me see if I can recreate that. And I'll say, so this guy, line chart, maybe profit percentage, and let's try by month. And let's actually try column chart. Oh shoot, that's not very interesting. Let's get something interesting in there. Sales. All right, cool. So in here, in like table matrix, I think the conditional formatting is here, and there are lots of options. It is really cool. They've really upped the game here. So conditional formatting, and you can see there's background colors, font colors, data bars, icons, right? But if you come here, I always expect the same thing, that I wanna color this, the sales thing. So I go here, and conditional formatting is not there. I think it should be. That'll make it more discoverable, maybe intuitive as well. Discoverable, right? So that'll make it easier to find. That thing is in a totally different place. So again, I always get, where was this? So that thing, conditional formatting for this, is you go to format and you go to data colors. And even there is very hidden, well hidden, almost as if they didn't want you to see it, which I know they don't want that, but I'm sure they'll update this. So if you look here, it's here. Conditional formatting, right? I mean, oh gosh, it's buried in there. And maybe it's if you expand this one, yep, nope, that's not there either, right? So you got to do this, and here, of course, and then you click conditional formatting, and then you have all the other options, right? I mean, color, scale, rules, field value, and that sort of stuff. And let's just hit OK and try that, right? So those are the two places that you can find conditional formatting. Cool. Let's try the next question that I saw. Investiture. Ooh, love that handle. I suppose that's what you're about, or your company. I already have that here. Let's do 3. How are we doing on? Oh yeah, awesome. You guys are hanging out with me. Sometimes I'm like, oh, is there anybody watching? And believe me, guys. So by the way, we have done over 50 episodes of Talk Power BI. Thank you for your support. Thank you for joining. You make this possible. I mean, I don't want this to be a monologue. I mean, I know I'm the only one kind of talking most of the time, but of course you're interacting with the chat, and of course I love having my students on the phone, because yeah, you can just have that deeper conversation. And of course, when I'm helping them with questions, sometimes they can share their screen, show me what's going on. So that's all of that is good. But yeah, thanks to my students and all of you. So let's see how many have you had. 73. Oh, that's crazy. 73. But I'll admit, if you want to see me embarrassed, yeah, some of the earlier ones, well, actually, I think I have removed the early ones, because if you notice these are still an hour long. I remember when I really started, then I would get on, and then there wouldn't be that many people, and they would be shy or whatever. They wouldn't ask that many questions. And like, hey guys, and I know I was, so now when there are no questions, then I entertain you, hopefully, with my stories, right? And sometimes I'm surprised by how, I mean, I talk about stuff. I mean, if you go back, I've talked about stuff which is some of my really tough moments, and I'm okay with that now. I'm glad to share that with you guys. So I regale you with my stories or inspire you or something, right? But earlier I was like, oh, okay, no questions. All right, guys, I'll see you next time, right? So there were some of these really embarrassing ones. So I'm glad and happy for your support. Thank you. Let's go back here. Investiture. How to use time value of money functions in Power BI? I need to know more. Time value of money functions. Where are the money functions? I'm not sure. Maybe I'm missing something. Are there money functions in Power BI? Money, or maybe the question is about time. Currency, DAX function reference. So again, I mean, so there is a time aspect, right? I mean, we talk about calendar table and the date table quite a bit, but then how do you handle time, like time of the day, like, right, like, oh, this sale happened at 9 a.m. or this stock was sold in time of whatever, right? Something like that, and versus 12 noon and something like that. So is it a question about that? Like, I want to be able to do something with the time element there, or is it something else? So we'll hold that one. So let me see if there are any other questions. So Victor, thanks. This is my first time here with good experience. See you next time. Great. What version month are you using? So with Power BI desktop, there are 2 ways to install it. And the 2 ways to install it are you can download it and install it, or get it from the App Store. And well, I mean, if you need help, I have the video on that. I mean, you shouldn't. It's just Google away. Apparently some people do, so yeah, it talks about that. So I get my Power BI from the App Store, and that means it's automatically updated. So I mean, I have the most recent version, which I think is the August one. That's the one that I have. Good question though, because yeah, you're right. I mean, the conditional formatting how it's showing, it's possible that if you have an older version, it will look not like that. That can be a bit of a challenge, that the UI kind of keeps changing, but it's not changing fundamentally. And again, guys, I mean, when I work with clients, 80% of the work is under the hood. It's in the query editors, in the modeling. It's obviously in the soft skills, like how do you assess their requirements? How do you prioritize their requirements? How do you talk to them about Agile BI? That sort of stuff. That is the golden stuff. And this you can figure out, right? So I have this whole theory of push versus pull approach of learning. There's some knowledge you want it to be pushed to you. And people struggle with Power BI because they haven't mastered the core concepts. For that, you do want to join a course, right? I mean, you do want to join a course, and that way somebody pushes to you the core concepts and they're like, doom, done, right? If you've seen The Matrix, you remember where Neo is like, oh, I know Kung Fu now, right? I mean, he just downloaded in brain and it was done. This is similar to that. How cool is that, right? I mean, this is like that. I mean, you're downloading the best of my knowledge into your brain, like directly, you're watching through the videos, right? So this is the push approach, where something gets pushed to you. The rest of the stuff, you can pull to yourself anytime. The other day, one student said, "Oh, Avi, the treat as function." I think it happened on the TalkPowerBI call. And I'm like, what? I didn't know it. But if you have the core concepts, you can just pull it to you. This is how easy it is. It's a Google away. It's a Google away. You can pull that to you anytime, right? And if you have the core concepts, then you're going to pull something to you, and you're not going to just copy paste and apply it. And that's where people get stuck. If you don't have the core concepts, and you copy paste, and if it works, great. Fingers crossed, right? Fingers crossed you paste it. If it works, great. Otherwise, you're like, oh gosh, right? But no, I mean, you're going to understand it, and maybe you will copy paste. But if it doesn't work, you know exactly what to change, right? So if you have the core concept, you can pull infinite amount of knowledge to you. But people learn differently. What they do is they go to Google, this jigsaw puzzle of Google and YouTube, and they try to piece together those core concepts. They're trying to pull that core knowledge to them, and that's a big mistake. That's a huge mistake. That's going to change your learning time from, I don't know, like it's going to make it at least 10x more, if not more. And of course, the worst case scenario is that you're going to get frustrated and give up. And I talk to people, and when I hear them saying these things, I know the path that they chose. And they say, "Oh, Avi, this is so much easier in Excel. I'm just going to do it in Excel. So it's so frustrating," right? I know the path they took. They never got, got this knowledge pushed to them. They've been trying to pull it and pull it piece by piece. Google, YouTube, they're trying to piece it together, this jigsaw puzzle. And that's a really, really bad idea, right? So don't do that. So push versus pull. How did we get started on this conversation? I have no idea. All right. Okay, of course, I was responding to Victor. So Victor, yeah, go start with a 60-minute tutorial, and then if if you're invited to my course, then consider joining that. All right, future value and PV function or PMT function, Power BI. I'm not familiar with any of those. Cool, time to do some pull. Is it a DAX function? Future I'm not sure what that is. PV function. XNPV. Oh, okay, this is cool. Or PMT function. PMT DAX, PMT, how to calculate in I'm not sure. XNPV. So it returns a present value. So what is the question? How to use the time value of money functions? Yeah, I'm not sure I have enough information to help you. How to use the time value of money functions in Power BI? Like, maybe you can point me to a specific function. PV is present value. Got it. If I would like to calculate the future value of X amount there, would it be? Would I visualize in Power BI? Yeah, I think I'm gonna need something more specific. So have you tried it, and did it not work? Is it, which specific function are you talking about? I mean, point me to the page here, because I'm not finding, like, there's no PMT function as such. Are you saying how do I calculate kind of PMT there? I mean, of course, I don't know how to calculate it. Is this what is this? DAX version PMT. I mean, clearly, maybe this article would help. But I'll give you a generic answer. Maybe it would help. Maybe it would not. So, of course, for those guys who've hung out with me, I always say, and so far, I have not yet met a challenge which I couldn't solve in Power BI. There was one which I remember kind of fondly. It took me a month to solve. Man, it was crazy, and it was nuts. It was well ahead of its time. In fact, it was so much ahead of its time because after we solved it and we declared victory, nobody cared because they didn't get it. But anyway, that's a whole other story. But so I'm going to give you a generic response. And I just, so when I'm trying to do anything, I always say human learning comes before machine learning. So again, it's gonna sound kind of maybe trite, but frankly, this is my best advice. I mean, I'm being genuine here. So I just break down like how the human calculate it. right? How would a human calculate feature value, right? I mean, how would you do it in Excel? What formulas, da da da, any of that, right? So, or how would you do it kind of by hand? And then I code it into Power BI. It's simple, right? And of course, sometimes, I mean, there are functions built in to help you, which, right? I mean, if was like a built-in, maybe this XNPV function can use, then great, right? I mean, you just call it and you just specify all of this. If not, then you do kind of step by step, right? I mean, something like this, which I hope it doesn't come down to. Yeah, sorry, I'm not much help. Now, of course, if you're looking for, so folks, if you need to kind of engage with somebody, sometimes, of course, I mean, I'm obviously here. I'm happy to help. I'm happy to hang out with you guys. But sometimes you just need. It just works better to have to do paid consulting. So yeah, just go on my page and click contact me. And the best news is that so I'll admit that sometimes I'm kind of the bottleneck because, man, I'm serving my students, I'm serving my YouTube followers. So yeah, so this is something kind of so now you also have an option to book a meeting with some amazing folks. And by the way, these names should be very familiar if you hang out with me on my channel. You know Charles Elwood, you know Noah Basket. So yeah, so this is something new we're trying. Guess what? It's a beta. Yes, I believe in that. So, right, agile approach. And so we're like, oh, what if we try this? So we'll see how it works, but you have that opportunity, which I think is a tremendous opportunity. So yeah, kind of how the industry works. You have the free initial consult, and you can talk to them and then mutually decide if that's going to be a good option or not, right? So check it out, right? So learnpowerbi.com/contact. I like to do both calculations and visualization of future value for money, just like I do it in Excel. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, anything you can calculate, you can obviously visualize, right? So, right? I mean, so the way I think about Power BI, like once I have a number, I can show it in a list. That's a calculation. I can graph it up, right? So, yeah, how to calculate interest amount of Power BI without creating column? Can it be possible to me? So again, investiture, I don't know if it's not going to work on this forum. I mean, if you're really intent on solving it fast, to me it feels like you do need some paid consulting help. What I'll say is that one of our clients, and I was blown away when I got this feedback. So they weren't working with me; they were working with somebody else from kind of Learn Power BI family. But I asked them, I was like, hey, how's it been going? And they said, I got more done in the 9 hours that I worked with a person than I could have done myself in 90, right? So 9 hours versus 90 hours, right? So yeah, so it can be really incredible if you work with a professional. So how to calculate the interest amount? I would ask you. It's like, right? I mean, give me the human learning. Like, give me how a human would calculate the interest amount, right? Give me the Excel formulas, and we'll translate that in Power BI, right? So, but again, I'm not like into investment or finance. I've worked with finance folks, right? So give me, right? So I'll turn it back to you. Like, how do you calculate interest, right? So give me the formula for that, and we'll calculate that in Power BI. All right, cool. So let's see on the phones. The crowd is thinned out. Bill, thanks for hanging out with me still. Anybody else? How are we doing time? Man, this was super awesome. I know we didn't get close to the 3-hour mark. The 3-hour mark is a magical mark for me. Let's go back and let's see how many have we hit? How many 3-hour live talk Power BI have you done? PMT function. Yeah, I couldn't find a PMT function in DAX, but there is this in Excel. But of course, this article is showing like how would you do it in Power BI. So try that. All right, cool. So let's see. What was it talking about? Oh yeah, we were gonna check how many have been 3Rs. This one is still going on. Yeah, 3R. I love the 3R ones. Yeah, look at that. Oh, well, this was interesting. 3R, how to transition from employee to Power BI consultant. And this one was 3Rs. 2 hours 59. So close. Anyway. All right, so I didn't see any new questions. So, man, it was so fun hanging out with you guys. I really enjoyed our session today. And folks, sometimes I have to pinch myself, and I'm like, gosh, this is crazy. I can't believe I do this for a living. So thank you for that. You're the ones who make it possible. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time. Power on.